Distorted Wish, Chapter 6, Clinging to Scraps. Ladybug originally intended to cover the next 2 floors down, perfectly ready to spend her evening making sure she didn't leave any loose ends on this lead. That plan had to cut short as she remembered one tiny detail. Aller was staying at her house, Chat Noir, who she had just sent home before he could get into any trouble mixing his hero form and civilian form out in public. Her absences may be easy to excuse around her parents, who allowed her plenty of freedom and independence, but Aller definitely would pick up that something was off when she suddenly arrived home when she was supposed to have been home the whole time. He was Chat Noir. He used excuses all the time. It would be silly to think he couldn't sniff out a bullcrap excuse. She would just have to investigate later, or do as Chat Noir suggested and take that information to the police. She wasn't entirely sold on the idea that the police would find Adrien faster than they could, but it also didn't feel right to withhold information like that. MariChat managed to arrive home in record time. Not sure if Aller had gone back in through the balcony or the front door. MariChat took the safe route and transformed close to the bakery, going in through the side door. She had an excuse on her lips as she came in, ready to tell them that she forgot to return something to a friend after school. But Aller, when he dashed in front of her, crooked smile on his face, he didn't ask her about that. "Princess, it looks like I'm going to be staying with you for a few more days. You wouldn't happen to have any spare clothes that might fit me, would you? I think your dad's clothes are a little big for me." "I think I have a few things." MariChat looked around to make sure her parents weren't in the hallway. They had to be in the bakery. She lowered her voice. "Can't you pop back home and get some clothes? Sneak in through the window or something?" "I could," he considered, scratching his chin. "But I'll have to wait until nighttime. I can't transform right now, and I don't want to be recognized. Plus, I don't want a camera to catch me and think I'm a cat burglar." Oh, right. MariChat had almost forgotten that this wasn't just your average kid, whose neighbors wouldn't blink at if he climbed in through his own house's window. As far as her civilian self knew, this was Aller's real face. She would have to be careful about what each side knew or had been told or not told, or else find a plausible excuse for her civilian self obtaining knowledge that supposedly only Ladybug knew. She had a feeling that things were going to get confusing pretty fast. Maybe Chat wouldn't notice if MariChat said something only Ladybug was supposed to know? A laugh burst out at that thought, and her mother glanced at her. Her thoughts had carried on through to making dinner with her mother. MariChat nearly dropped a pot lid in surprise, and lowered that laugh to a chuckle. Chat would definitely notice. She couldn't take the chance that he wouldn't see through a white lie of how she found out something he had only told Ladybug in confidence. He luckily hadn't questioned Ladybug's knowledge of knowing where he dropped Adrien off during the akuma attack, when he had previously only told Alia, and she told MariChat over the phone. She just had to keep pretending that this Aller identity was his real one. It brought more questions, however, ones she had to bite her tongue to keep from voicing. It made her wonder, what else was part of this hastily constructed identity? Dinner conversation was strangely shallow for MariChat's mind, stuck as she was in its deeper questions. Her parents talked about their day at the bakery lightly and inquiring at her day at school. Unasked questions bubbled under the surface, instead giving Aller space to eat as the conversation stayed on lighter topics, away from asking him about himself. MariChat joined the conversation, but her mind stuck elsewhere until an unbidden question boiled over. "Aller, have you ever worked at anything like the bakery before?" MariChat knew it was a mistake as soon as the question finished leaving her mouth. She was still trying to process that her dear kitten's life, when he took off the mask and went back to civilian life, might not have been as rosy or as average as she had assumed, and she had just asked him about his private life, here, at the dinner table. But Aller shook his head, smiling from the light tone of the previous conversation. "No, never. It was really a new experience for me, working the register. He's a natural," Tom extolled. "The customers already love him, and he's a great help during the busy times. I wouldn't say no if you wanted to stay on for the whole season," he added, nudging Aller. MariChat breathed again. It was difficult to even think about the topic of abusive home life. Casual questions threatened to turn devastating when she thought about how he would answer. Favorite hobbies, what work his father did, if he had any pets, favorite sports, anything that compared his stay here to his own home. The questions made her mouth feel dry before she could voice them. She imagined terrible answers that revealed a maladjusted life that had formed her carefree kitty, so ready to throw himself between her and Akuma's. MariChat turned off the lights, wondering when she would get a free moment to continue searching for Adrien when she also had to keep up the image of an average girl for Aller. The evening had passed uneventful, which had proved frustrating when MariChat just wanted to swing out the window. Every second, every minute, every hour could be otherwise spent on something productive. Working on sewing projects while Aller read books or regaled to her stories of Ladybug and Chat Noir didn't seem as productive anymore. Below, Aller's whispers to Plag reached her, the words tinged with soft reassurances and bright gratitude. Her own thoughts slowed, reminding her that not just her was hurting. To his friends and family, Aller must have disappeared. But all the focus was on Adrien, that investigation overshadowing any other missing kids' alerts. She sank her head into her pillow and shut her eyes tight. Soft rattles of her ladder, then the stark breath of Paris at night. When the trapdoor above closed, she rolled over in bed and looked to Tiki. "I'm worried about him," she confessed. "I think I understand what his friends and family must be feeling, to have someone you love go missing. I'm worried about Plag." Tiki shared her own worries. "He's sleeping a lot." She tapped her tiny paws together in anxiety. "MariChat, we don't need that much sleep unless we use a lot of our power, but Plag won't wake up long enough to explain." MariChat sighed. "It's not just his powers I'm worried about." She lifted the covers and brought Tiki closer to comfort both of them. "We both have families and people we care about who don't know we're heroes. He has a life outside of being Chat Noir, and he's running away from that. People are going to notice he's missing, even if they weren't that kind to him," she added, looking away. "I can't believe this is happening at the same time Adrien goes missing." Tiki nuzzled under her chin. "It's not your fault for not noticing anything sooner. He's rarely so serious." "Yeah, that threw me off at first. There's a lot you two don't know about each other, MariChat. You keep a lot of secrets. This is one secret I don't think he was ready to share. It's almost Christmas. It's supposed to be happy and cheerful." MariChat's mind stayed on that point until she fell asleep. They both had entire lives when they took off the mask. Even Chat Noir had a life outside of fighting akumas and concocting new puns, even if she had never thought about it until now. The morning arrived with a shout. "MariChat!" She groaned. What was the point of setting an alarm when she had a hyper roommate running around her room first thing in the morning? Tiki stirred beside her, nuzzling into her bedding in response to the disturbance. MariChat pulled her covers higher over Tiki and herself, just in time before Aller's panicked face popped out to cast a shadow over her bed. "What?" "Have you seen Plag? I can't find him anywhere." "I'm not even awake yet," MariChat said. "No, I haven't seen him. Check my fabric stash. Maybe he's curled up there." "I'll check there, thanks." Aller dropped down to the floor with a thump. MariChat set up to snap, "Use the ladder next time." "Sorry." MariChat sighed, rolling her eyes, and looked beside her to check on Tiki. Instead of a sleepy black and red Kwame lying there, a black Kwame snuggled a scrap piece of fabric curled up against her pillow. She felt something against her lower back, and then Tiki peeked out at the side of her hip. "Aller, he's up here," she called down. He fell asleep on my pillow, apparently. As Aller climbed out the ladder to retrieve his Kwame, her alarm finally went off. MariChat sighed and hung her head. MariChat collapsed into her seat with yet another sigh. She wondered if she could get more sleep at this desk than trying to sleep in with a cat superhero leaping around her room, hopped up on Kwame power, who apparently had the goal of driving her up the wall. Overnight, Aller had retrieved clothes from his house. More designer pieces similar to the Gabrielle clothing he showed up wearing the first day, but she had wrongly assumed that just happened to be the outfit he had on that day. Maybe even second-hand clothing. When she finally noticed the expensive clothing haul he brought from home, she pointed out that working in the bakery would stain the fabrics. Aller dismissed her concerns with a laugh. He had zero emotional attachment to them, was his explanation, and it wasn't like he had brought any non-designer clothes. MariChat couldn't help imagining all the ways the expensive fabric could be ruined. Before she went out the door, she insisted he wear an apron. He at least agreed to that, soothing some of her nerves. "House guest kept you up all night again?" MariChat turned her head to look at Alia. "Something like that. He woke me up before my alarm. Total handful, trying to keep things from turning into a disaster zone with him around. You wouldn't believe it, but I feel your pain. All the trouble on the Ladybug he's been causing that I was trying to do damage control on." "Really? What did he do?" "Yesterday evening, I got one private message saying they had just seen Chat Noir transform in that apartment building across the street from here," Alia said. "Then more messages. But it didn't stop there. I thought people would keep it to the private messages, but they started commenting on my last post too. You know what people are saying? Our new friend jumping around with Chat Noir's baton on the rooftops. Some say they saw him directly. Some got it from a friend's dog, who got it from their uncle, who got it from a friend, all asking me to comment on it. She tilted her phone screen, showing Marinette the comments disabled text at the bottom of a recent blog post. I've been deleting comments left and right, but I can't keep it down forever. The people know, and they're rioting against my censorship. I'll lose credibility over this if I don't say anything soon. Marinette grimaced. Sorry for making you keep this a secret, Alia. Trusting Aller to rock back to the bakery without giving him a ride on the Ladybug Express halfway there had been a mistake. That cat delighted in the flamboyant. He flirted with danger here. Oh no. Alia wagged her finger and tapped at her phone, beginning a new post. I'm not keeping this secret. At the end of the school day, I'm putting out a statement on this. I won't say anything about you or his name, she added before Marinette could protest, but as a reporter, I can't stay silent. I understand. It wasn't ideal, but once Aller's Kwame recovered and fixed things, his identity would be safe again. With a different face when unmasked, nobody would recognize him as the kid plastered all over the internet. She moved on to another topic. Do you have any news on Adrien? Please say you have something. Nothing. I'm really sorry, Marinette. I tried to dig into what was going on, but the mess on my blog kept me busy. You really need to put a leash on your new house guest. Alia, she pleaded, praying it wouldn't come to. You're going to have to talk to Chloe if you want the latest on his case. That. I was hoping I could avoid her. Marinette glowered at the door. Speak of the devil. Chloe and Sabrina walked in, but without as much pomp as usual. She wanted to roll her eyes at Chloe's new dramatic black wardrobe, but her heart ached. She could understand the pain. Although, while Chloe could do nothing but cry and yell at others, Marinette could don a mask and actually do something about it. But right then, Chloe had held something over her. Information. With that in mind, Marinette took a deep breath and stood up. Chloe? For a brief moment, the two glared at each other, Chloe placing her black purse on her desk. Sabrina scuttled between them to her own desk beside Chloe, keeping her head down. Then Marinette softened, and she asked, Anything new on the search? Chloe choked on an ugly sob, unable to keep her composure. She shook her head, covering her mouth, and looked away. It was during the Akuma attack 2 days ago, she explained, voice hushed. The classroom was quiet, so Marinette heard her well. Nobody saw him at all after that. There aren't any leads yet. Marinette hesitated. I heard that Chat Noir grabbed him during the attack and put him away up high, on top of another building here. But Ladybug and Chat Noir probably already gave statements to the police. She turned away, head down to return to her seat, and heard Chloe grab her phone out of her bag. Marinette smiled as the other girl hurried out the door to call her father to drop in the tip, but it didn't last long. The heroes didn't know where Adrien had disappeared to, even if Chat Noir had a starting location. The best turnout that Marinette could hope for was that the police enlisted their help in the search. But last night, Chat Noir had been less than interested. Not to mention, currently in possession of a malfunctioning Miraculous, and she couldn't let slip that Ladybug had a personal stake in the case. She sat down back at her desk with a heavy sigh. Nino dropped his things on his desk and faced the two girls. Speaking of Chat Noir, the rumor going around is that he's ditching the mask. When's that going up on the Ladybug, Alia? Alia dropped her forehead to the desk with a groan. Don't remind me. Nino's eyebrows went up. What's up with you? Hello, juicy gossip on a Parisian superhero. Are you sure you're Alia? I know everyone's torn up about Adrien, but I'm sure he'll be fine soon. The dude probably ran away from home. He'll pop up, someone will recognize him, and boom! Full police escort back home. Marinette's head joined Alia's on the desk. Not another one. First Cha, now Nino. And not tell any of us where he's going? Right. Alia returned with a sigh. Have some faith. He would have told his friends if anything was going on at home. Nino looked between the two of them and shrugged. I'm just saying, he said mildly. End chapter 6.